Magnus Carlsen was in scintillating form this Freestyle Friday just gone, brand new tournament on chess.com, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was because he had one of these little bad boys, the Magic Mind productivity shot. Give yourself the best opportunity to have a productive day. Could be that last little 5% you need to unlock a great day alongside good sleep, exercise, diet. Link in the description. You know the drill. Go to magicmind.com/epicjan. Get yourself the bundle. You get the sleep elixir and you also get the productivity shot. And Magnus was on absolute fire, just killing people in this freestyle chess format. That's why the pieces are jumbled up. It was on chess.com, 3 minutes plus 1 second a move. And who does he run into in round 8? Mr. Hans Niemann. Could he continue his form here? Love when these two guys clash. So spicy, right? Hans had white. Let's check out this online gem. So we see the move on the board of pawn to d4, but of course pushed by the rook here. Magnus also blasts off with his cannon. And now look at this. Both players building these banana hammocks. We get 3 in a row. And of course we're all wishing for b6 here to get all 4 bishops fully crossing swords. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Magnus instead pushes the c-pawn, and already on move 4, Hans Niemann makes a terrible mistake here. The chess is really crying for itself. You should go bishop b2 and protect this one, or knight e3 is a good move. Counter-attack the d5 pawn. But what do we see in the game? The explosive c4 here. Sure, it builds a pawn cube, also known in the business as a pube, but there's a problem, because after takes, which Magnus does, queen recaptures, there's this tremendous pressure now on the pawn, and despite having shaved the pube, you're really struggling to actually do something about this undefended bishop. So knight e6 was played by Magnus, piles on this gargantuan pressure on the pawn, and if you try something like e3, you're just in a world of pain. You know, you're not actually supporting this pawn enough. You can simply castle, still you can't take, the bishop's going to drop. Something like this could happen. Imagine you try and save that bishop. Well, it all just collapses. There's these ideas in the air as well. Here's a sample line. Everything gets hoovered off. Black is killing it with this discovered check, etc. So e3 just not helping. Therefore, what does Hans do? Should go d5, but he plays the very smelly bishop to d5, and you can see what he wants to do. Eliminate a defender, or if it takes, you crash through to the king. Counterplay, weirdness, but Magnus now plays the excellent and very unusual rook takes on d5, sacrificing the rook for the bishop on move 6. How often do you see that, right? This is pure Fisher random stuff, or chess 960, freestyle, call it what you will. Queen recaptures here, and now we get the weird looking castles. It's always the same in chess 960. You castle the king as you normally would. At least it finishes on the square it should be on, but you can't have pieces in the middle. And now we get knight f to d2, again imprecise, in a difficult position. Magnus develops huge pressure on the pawn once more, and this queen has to get out of dodge. Rook d8 was on the way. Now we see the pawn drop in the center. Huge dark squared grip for Magnus. We see this bishop now capturing on d4. It was miserably dead in the corner, so it isn't such a bad move. Knight takes back, and Hans sidelines the pony. Normally a big boo-boo, but he is going to try and challenge this one in a moment. b6 is now played, and the donkey becomes a horsey, challenging this stallion in the center. Magnus simply takes, queen recaptures, and now he slides all the way in, doing a whoosh as he goes, attacks the pawn on h2. And how do you defend it, right? If rook h1, the queen's, sliming its way in anyway. Sliming sounds weird. And if you go knight f3 here, guess what? You've exposed the king. Bang, that's an uncomfortable check. Not to mention you could shatter the pawns, but this is even worse, of course, and the king can't step this way. This is the thing. So the knight is glued to this square. That's why we see queen d3, also pouring some sugar on the defense. Magnus now takes this pawn, hits the rook, rook f1 played, and don't get trigger happy going for the material. I mean, grandmasters, they know, right, to hold on to those bishops as long as they can. But also here, knight f3 comes, you hit the queen. If you don't want to give up the bishop and you save the queen like this, well then rook g1, and you're just heading in the wrong direction, trapped your own sniper. So instead, Magnus goes queen h3. Wasn't strictly necessary, but he's re-entering the game with that piece. Knight f3 played, now bishop c6, reactivates, looks at some important squares, and you could technically castle here. Hans didn't do it. Something like this. Maybe he was afraid of this diagonal in the long run. You know, it is severely damaged, very, very open. Instead, he goes rook g1, but now this king is just permanently stuck in the center. Magnus goes queen e6, centralizing, not given the best move because it frees up the white king, but still black has advantage, and Niemann decides it's time for a side quest here. How many times can he move the king in a row? He starts with king f1. Bishop f6 from Magnus, king g2, g5 on the board. Andrea starts spinning the beats as Magnus goes for the attack, and Hans decides it's time to shuffle back here. Queen h3 check, king e1, that's 4 in a row here. Magnus goes back, I was about to say 4 in a row. Now we see the final 5th in a row, not a woe, king f1. But is it woeful chess? 5 king moves, wow. But he does unlock the side prize. Big magic mushroom mind bundle for Hans Niemann. Lucky guy he is, and he gets gifted it by Danny Wrench. What a guy. We now see king g7 from Magnus, and Hans decides it's time to go pawn g4, shut down the advance of the pawns. h6 is therefore played, and now Hans must have just had a complete brain meltdown at this moment, because he picks up the lady, plonks it on the explosive c4 square, offering Magnus the queen exchange. Of course, he snaps it off the board. You're playing the endgame go. Why would you let the ladies leave? And look at the power of these. Absolutely love it. Just a picture of harmony. a6 prepares to make that pass juicer. We get king g2, b5, now takes, and the red carpet rolled out, especially for the c-pawn. King g3 unpins that knight. Rook a8 from Magnus, hits the pawn. We get George Lucas's favourite move, r2d2, and after the explosive c4, we see some real problems now for white. Hans goes e3, gives a bit of wiggle room, creating this nook and cranny for the rook. Now b4 on the board, rook b1 attacks that one, and the immediate rook a4 most precise. Instead, Magnus does this, the rook saves itself, then he goes rook a4 here, but it's not the best of moves because Niemann's got the shot of pawn a3, misses it. We've gone to the back cave, but the point is, if rook takes, you can take here, you're attacking the bishop and so on. If pawn takes, best engine move actually, then you can do this. Black's still technically better because of these really dangerous pawns, but it's suddenly very, very weird. I mean, white is an entire rook up for those two dangerous pawns. Okay, it was missed. Instead, Hans goes e4, looking to lock out the bishop on f6, but you can see the reaction. Stock Squid absolutely poops its pants, butt flap open, because Magnus is pushing. The rook saves itself, and now you could immediately take on a2, run this second pawn, but Magnus instead stops that bishop from getting squashed, hits the rook, and Niemann doesn't even move it. You know, then this is collapsing, b pawn's running. So instead, he takes here. Good move. Yes, this one drops in a minute. Okay, not straight away. First, this is attacked, saved. Not saved, sorry, takes on c3. I forgot which rook that Hans sacrifices, but I knew he was given an exchange, and this is the problem. Those bishops have come good, covering so many squares, and you had to shed one of the rooks. How to play from here? Well, great move by Magnus, doesn't move the bishop, pushes the pawn of course, forces the rook to meekly return. Now the bishop saves itself and wins another pawn in the center. It's dominant from Magnus Carlsen. The bishop now saves itself, knight b3 spinning around, but of course this one just collapses, and with it the entire queenside. The rook isn't blundered, he's world number one. f3 now prepares to bring in that king cobra. We see e6 on the board, the king marches over here, couple of exchanges of prisoners, and Magnus now abandons c2, picks up on f3, but look at that, you're 3 pawns down here against the legend of the endgame. The king marches over, the pawn's on its way, you could resign here, but Hans plays on a few more moves. Can he flag Magnus? Now this pawn is actually going to drop on g3, but watch this. Nice play from Magnus Carlsen. He pushes it, bishop e4 on the way to support it, therefore taken with the knight. Didn't matter how you take. This check could then be coming if you took with the rook, sorry. But if you take with the knight, then you can pin and win. And the problem is king e2, bishop e4, and we see resignation, because if you go king f2, then you can liquidate everything and bang. You got the two connected passers, run them down, make the knight and bishop, do the fancy checkmate. This the final position. Magnus whooping Hans's butt there, and he took home the entire first Freestyle Friday tournament. Congrats to him. Very strong play already this week in the first one of this format. And of course, don't forget Magic Mind, bundle in the description, magicmind.com, Epic Jan. Get the discount, 45%. Really, really good stuff. Hope to see you again soon. Another epic video on screen. And thanks a lot for watching. Cheers.